Well, hello and welcome back to the Wolverine Live. I'm John Borton here with Tom Crawford. We've been gone for a couple of Tuesdays now, but back and ready to roll and lots to talk about. Tom Crawford, as you know, East Lansing resident and an entrepreneur in many ways. You can see him on Press Pass Sunday nights on Fox 47. You can see him doing his own videos in his Crawford Podcasting Network. And on Tuesdays, we love to have him here. We love to have him talking about Michigan football, basketball, you name it. Tom, welcome back.
Well, it's great to be back. I like this time of year. It was good to get removal from college football. I just divorced myself from college football, from knowing what's going on in Major League Baseball for the Press Pass show or anything else. And now I'm back and I'm gearing up. I like this time of year. I can still do my summer sports, my water skiing, and then it's just gear up time. We're 2 weeks away from media days down at Indy, where you and I will be there, and all the other On3 people and tons of others will be there. And then August 1st or thereabouts, camp opens, and it's going to be an amazing preseason. Of sheer anticipation, John.
Oh, no doubt about it. I was talking to one of our mutual friends today, one Mr. Douglas Karsh, voice of the Wolverines on the radio. And we were talking about various things for an article I've got upcoming. But he said that he had posed the question to Michigan fans, when was the last time that you entered a season with this much confidence and expecting to beat Ohio State? And I think the general consensus was it has been a while, because even last year you had but it's in Columbus. It's this, it's that. And, this year that game's at home. Michigan is just brimming with confidence, has got the second-year starting quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, loaded on offense, certainly restocked on defense. It's just one of those deals where Michigan fans are like, bring this thing on. Let's go.
It's funny you asked that question. I was just pondering that the other day about this whole thing about anticipation of this season and the expectation that goes with that. And to answer your question, you talk about going back. I got to go back to 1976. Okay, Rick Leach entering his sophomore year. Rob Lytle was the senior. They were preseason number one, and they were expected to win the national championship. They were on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Street Smith had Rob Lytle. Rick Leach was on the cover of Street Smith. The other was on SI. And they went through unscathed, and then they lost that game down at Ross-Ade Stadium.
Yeah.
Jimmy Smith dropped that pass.
You dropped
and they lost 16-14. Bobby Wood missed a field goal. And then they beat Ohio State because they had, we had this expectation, even though they had not beaten Ohio State prior to 1976. They lost in 75. They lost in 74, tied in 73, lost in 72, and they won in 71. So it's been 5 years. But it was just there was that much talent. That team with that offensive line and all the tools and Jimmy Smith and Rob Lytle and that defense, Calvin O'Neill, that team is the closest thing to this caliber of this. This team, I think, is above that, though, in sheer depth, both sides of the ball. But that's the closest. Right. And what is that? That's almost, what's that, 47 years ago? That's insane.
And I will give you great credit for having that level of confidence going into even 76 because of the struggles that the Wolverines had there for a few years with Ohio State.
Yes.
But that was a prescient feeling that you had, and certainly one that our more mature members of the Live Club will certainly fondly remember.
Yes.
Everybody is into this thing right now and saying, okay, this team is stacked. It is going to come down to that last game at with Ohio State, once again in a position to make it to Indy, have another shot at a third straight Big Ten championship. It would be a third straight undisputed championship, which would be a first, I understand it, for Michigan. They've had many times where they've had a shared title in there, but it's going to be a special season. One thing you look at that, we've talked about this. We're going to talk a little bit about that Penn State game later in this podcast because of some recent developments prediction wise, and then your referred to trap game against Maryland, and then Ohio State in the Big House. My biggest wish meteorologically that day, as you know, would be for snow again, and just to give the Ohio State fans a little taste of that. Oh no, here we go again.
Yeah. I don't care if it is. I don't care if it's rain, snow, sun, whatever. 50 degrees, some crazy November day where it's 50 degrees, and there have been a few of those once in a while. I think Michigan's going to win this game. I know we're going to go down to the schedule. And I saw Ballas's come. I saw his rundown on his predictions, and so I'm gonna make a comment about that. But man, it's just fun to do all these scenarios of what if this happens? If they lose this game, will they win this game? Because a lot of times that's the way I think. If they lose this game, that means they're going to win this game. If they win this game, that means they're going to lose this game. That's a weird way analytically to try to surmise what's going to happen in a football schedule. But that's what I do sometimes, and but I might even go. I might even show my cards today. I said to you a couple of weeks ago before we took the break that at Big Ten Media Days I'm going to tell you exactly how the schedule is going to go in my opinion, and I might even go a little bit early on that.
There you go. All right. Well, there are a couple of harbingers of the football season from where we come from. And one of them is exactly that, those Big Ten football meetings where you get to talk to all the coaches, players from other teams, every Big Ten team represented there. And it's going to be certainly interesting as always, because you've got the Ohio State, Michigan talk. You're talking about expansion in the Big Ten next year with USC and UCLA coming in. You're talking about certainly something that we're going to touch on here not too far into the broadcast with Pat Fitzgerald getting fired, lawyering up, and we'll see what happens from there. But there is another harbinger of football season that is very personal to me, and I know that you appreciate as well, and that would be this magazine, the Wolverine Football Preview. Blake Corum on the cover this year. Now I gotta tell the folks, there's not going to come with ripped up sheets of legal pad in theirs, because I'm already hard at work using mine. We're going to reference a couple things in a few minutes, but Tom, when the football preview of the Wolverine hits the mailbox, oh, there's a clean copy. How's that? Megan, super producer, right on it with Blake Corum, everybody's All-American. And Tom, I know that you always anticipate when this hits your doorstep.
Okay, so I'm going to yank your chain here a little bit. So I get a text yesterday from Pat Hayes. Hey, Tom, did you get your Wolverine preview back?
No.
And I go, Pat, no, I did not get my Wolverine magazine. Yeah. So I run out the mailbox today. A mailman comes. It's still not there. But I'm not blaming you. I'm not blaming On3. You know what I'm going to do? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to blame the East Lansing post office.
Exactly.
Because what they did, I know exactly what happened.
Sabotage.
On there on Abbott Road. I know exactly what happened. That magazine came in and said everybody's All-American, had Blake Corum. That one went in the junk. So you might as well reset. You might as well just bring one to me to Media Days, because it's not going to get through this postal system here in East Lansing.
All right. Well, we'll take care of you. We know you've been sabotaged. We know that some postal worker may have used that for target practice.
Yes.
But I'm telling you, you will see the Wolverine football preview in your hands. And I'll tell you what, this year, was in all the years that we've been doing this thing, including 1997. 1997 was kind of like a 2021 preview in that guys on the Wolverines were saying from Charles Woodson on down, I know that we have underperformed, but just watch because we're going to have something going this year that we haven't before. And we don't care about all the Michigan M stands for mediocre stuff. And this year has been probably more confidence than I've heard since then out of a Michigan team.
Oh, no doubt about it. And actually, I think that confidence started a couple years ago with the whole cultural change that we've talked about countless times in this program when Aiden Hutchinson was entering his senior year, okay, and that media days. I mean, everything was just like different. And they do have a lot of confidence and they do have a lot of bravado that they were always hesitant to, to showcase in the past. And so I think that stands out to me. But when I think back to the past Wolverine preview magazines, like you're talking about 97, I remember this is, and I'm not trying to, selfless plug here for the Wolverine on three, but I just got to say it. Jack Evelyn and I had started this program, this radio program, and we had John Falk on. I think this was like 2001 or 2002. And he kept says, "Hey, Tom, have you got your copy of the Wolverine of the preview magazine, or was it Go Blue magazine? I don't know what it was called back then. It was Wolverine." And he kept touting that thing. He says, "I carry that with me everywhere I go." Blah blah blah. And I think that we had you on the show the next week, and that's how you and I started building a friendship along with Ballas. And I can't say enough about it. It's something that's it's on my coffee table down in my man cave throughout the whole season, and I take it with me. I'll take it with me to media days. I'll take it with me to the press conference, or to not only to the press box for Michigan games, but pretty much it's in my backpack everywhere I go. So kudos to you and and terrific staff at the Wolverine, John.
Well, I'll tell you what. You talk about John Falk, the iconic equipment man over the years for Michigan. He told me that copy of the Wolverine football preview stays after he was gone away from Michigan and had officially retired and such. He said that's right on his TV stand beside his Barca lounger, and
Yes.
that he would use it for reference. And that right there, that said, okay, that's a stamp of approval. I remember
That's some cred. That's some serious cred there.
that's
JP.
some cred. Don Canham once told me the Wolverine. He said, he pointed right at me and said, "You guys got it right," and that meant a lot. John Falk's approval meant a lot. But like I said, this issue is one brimming with confidence. We had no less than a half dozen staff members make predictions. We always make staff predictions in the Wolverine. I will tell you right now, I'm not going to identify who is who, but half of our staff predicted Michigan to win the national championship. And the other half were tossing out there like teams, programs that are, it's not unreasonable to say that they could win it, like Alabama, Georgia.
Right.
But that's kind of where this thing is going. Across the board, you're seeing people predicting Michigan to win the Big Ten championship. You look at you look at the preseason magazines, whether it be Lindy's and Athlon and Phil Steele. They are two of those three predicting the Wolverines to be number one, or no, all three of them rather. Excuse me, all three of them predicting Michigan to be number one in the Big Ten East. And when you're number one in the Big Ten East, let's face it, you're number one in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and when you got Phil Steele takes he takes He takes every microcosm of that whole of the sport of football, each team, and breaks it down. Their interior line gives them all these power rankings and things like that. Phil Steele and just about everybody else are giving huge kudos to Michigan's defense. And that sits at the core with me. That's where this team's going to win a national championship, in my opinion, where that defense is not going to let down Michigan in those big games when all of a sudden speed might be another level that they might not be used to earlier in the season or even throughout the Big Ten. Sans Ohio State, this defense is going to be ready speed wise, I think, and on the edge and then on the interior with Chris Jenkins. I just think I start looking at all the moving parts on that defense, and that's when I get excited. What like I did in 1976 with that 76 defense. It was just the defense is going to keep them in the game. It's going to keep them in the game every game, even when it's going to keep them in every game. And I think this defense is gonna do that and not have to be bailed out by like the scenario against TCU and JJ made some mistakes to put him in that situation. We know that we've probably broken that game down way too much than they should. But it's a thorn that doesn't want to happen. Regardless, John, if Michigan wins the national championship or not, I always ask myself, what's success? What is a successful season? And what's an acceptable season? However you want it, whatever word you want to use. They got to win that first playoff game. That is something. I mean, they got to. I mean, Jim Harbaugh's won one postseason game his first year in Michigan, and he's offered it ever since. You got to get to the title game. If you get to the title game, that's still a really good season. If you fall in the title game, that's still a really good season. But I swear to God, though, anything short of a national championship, it's going to be disappointing to me. It really is.
And we have heard multiple Michigan players say that same thing. And that just tells you how the narrative around Schembechler Hall has changed since 2020.
It has.
2-4, and what is going on here? What is happening? And a big part of that narrative change is that after 2 decades of falling short, way more often than not against Ohio State, Michigan got it right. Michigan, for 2 straight years, has applied the formula that it needed to beat the Buckeyes. And I'm telling you, the confidence that springs from that it just works wonders. And Michigan cannot be successful in the Big Ten, cannot take the next step in the playoffs like you're arguing for now, which makes perfect sense, without first taking down the Buckeyes. And we've got let me quote, everybody loves the anonymous opposing coach in all these preview magazines. Well, we've got one here that says this about Michigan and its recent actions. It's proof of concept now. That's why they've stepped it up in recruiting. They breed the culture into those guys. It's elitist, but that's built on confidence, and confident teams are consistent. And Michigan is one incredibly confident team right now. And it's not just Michigan players that buy in and coaches that buy in. You are seeing it on a national level where, yes, this is a team that can compete for the whole shot. And that's a refreshing thing, because that takes you and I back to, and many Michigan fans, back to the day when you came into the season knowing Michigan had a shot to not only win the Big Ten, but be among the very elite in the nation and really take on anybody.
One of the biggest barometers for me as far as evaluating how much talent you have back is how much leadership you have back, okay? And how much talent with that talent, leadership combined element. And try to fathom who the captains are going to be on this team. I mean, you could start some kind of of a contest or whatever, and you would get so many different suggestions. I'm talking about both sides of the ball. There's justifiably, you know, guys on both sides of the ball that could be captains. And I'm not just saying they're because they're good players, because they've demonstrated good leadership on and off the field, just the way they present themselves. We've seen a ton of these guys in the press room. And it's like I say to myself, he could be a captain. He could be a captain. You know, just the way they are. The guy right there, number 9. Now he's only going to be a junior. You know, typically a lot of times it's seniors are your captains. He could be he's more viable to be a captain than just about anybody in my mind. JJ McCarthy is a leader on this team. There's no question about it. And it's always some coaches think your quarterback should be your captain. But that shows you how deep the quality of depth this team has, John. And that excites me probably more than anything.
Yeah, I agree. And this is, I mean, arguably and almost inarguably JJ McCarthy's team.
Yeah, it is.
The guy. He's got to be the source of the swagger, the confidence, the leadership, the playmaking. The ball's in his hands on every offensive play. And I just think that he would be a very good pick for a captain. I'm going to give you a couple more that I think should definitely be captains on this team. And maybe if you want to throw an extra one in there after I finish with mine, I will, welcome and embrace that. But I'll give you one on each side of the ball. Blake Corum.
No brainer. Half stop. I mean, mark it down. That's one. I mean, that's checked off. Yeah. Checked off right now.
The mere fact that he came back after a 400-yard season and 18 touchdowns and all the leadership and the weight room warrior stuff and just he is. Bo Schembechler would look at him and say he's Michigan.
Yeah.
And that would be enough of a stamp of approval.
Yeah.
On the other side of the ball, on the defensive side of the ball, I would be absolutely shocked if one Mike Sainristil was not a captain on this team for everything that he brought to it. His willingness to switch sides of the football, his willingness to, hey, whatever position you need me to play this year. If you want me to play nickel, I'm there. If you want me to play safety, I'm there. If you need me to play that other cornerback, I'll learn it. I'll be that. That's part of it. The fact that he delivered in one of the biggest moments in that game down in Columbus to flick the ball away at the last possible second from a bigger, much bigger tight end for Ohio State. Right. Saved a touchdown. He delivered in the biggest moments. He showed all the attitude in the world that you want. And I just think that that Mike Sainristil should definitely be among those guys.
So you hit, actually, we had 3 non-negotiables in our mind. Okay. We had JJ McCarthy, Blake Corum, and Mikey Sainristil. I mean, or maybe you're not agreeing with me on JJ. But I mean, those are 3 locked in. Those are 3 locked in. Yeah. How about a Zach Zenner on offense? And how about a Chris Jenkins on defense? I mean, there's 5 guys right there. Zach Zenner has been an amazing player, an amazing leader. You watch him in film, his leadership on the offensive line. That one's doggone near no-brainer, non-negotiable. Right. And we've talked about Chris Jenkins and the bloodlines that he had. I mean, just the way he is and how his teammates talk about him and how good he is. I mean, I don't know. Let's put 8 or 10 guys up there. I mean, out here, I know a lot of these teams that are big. Michigan State does it. They have a council, where they're kind of like, they're not the captains, but they're in the council, they're still in a leadership role. And all these guys there's leaders on all levels of these. They're sophomore leaders on this team. I get that. Everybody's a leader. I understand that. But I mean, there's so many to choose from. It's like you want to get all these kids the proper attribution that they richly deserve.
Oh yeah. And with Zach Zinter, how can you do better than having a Michigan captain back who 2 years ago predicted Michigan's win over Ohio State publicly in the
Yes.
football preview, and last year provided a performance that has given every night since probably at least one Ohio State fan nightmares.
Yeah.
The way he knocked people out of the way and opened the door for Donovan Edwards
Oh
to
my God. That was amazing block. Amazing.
Ohio Stadium's field.
Yeah. 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 He's got it all. So they're not lacking leadership. I will say that. That's not they got a pretty good chicken coop to go out to select those. And so that's not going to be an issue for Michigan lacking that.
I will say this before we get into the coaching narrative stuff around the Big Ten and some of the developments there of late. I know I've talked about Shane Ristil, my interview that I did with him, and how he emphasizes all the right things, doing it right in the classroom, doing it right in how you conduct yourself away from the field, the guys that he has encouraged, the young players, the young football players, how he's told them to always do all the right things. But I have to say that in doing the interviews for this football preview, there are so many guys that have been very impressive. This was a year where I was more focused on the defensive side of the ball. My colleague Chris Vallis was talking to the JJ McCarthy's and the Blake Corums, so you'll see him handling more of the offensive side. But talking to guys like a Braden McGregor, who had that injury in high school,
yes. Yeah.
and worked his way back and had a couple of deflections in the Ohio State game, and seeing the intensity of how he has been told, hey, there's going to be a next guy. You had Hutchinson, you had Ojabo, you had Mike Morris. There's going to be a next guy off the edge for Michigan. And he is intense about the fact of being that guy. And you talk about Chris Jenkins, how he is a motivator for so many guys on this team, how he grew up that way. I had a long, good conversation with his mom, who told some amazing stories about when he was a kid. Don't miss those in your football preview. But it was just like man after man, how Will Johnson talked about why Ohio State for him is so personal, about how the way the Buckeyes treated him in recruiting, when they got to a point where he felt like he was almost an afterthought to them, sure, and did not feel like he was as recruited as hard as he thought he should be. It really gives you some insight into where these guys are coming from and the level of motivation that they have to get after it, and not even give a thought to letting down in any single game this year.
Yeah, you mentioned Braden McGregor. I still vividly remember when he verbaled. I remember that video, and all the it was in Harbaugh's office, and I'm not trying to think of who was all in it. I know Sharon Moore was in there and some others, and everybody was so excited. And then he got hurt. Right before his senior year. I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen? I mean, you lose your senior year, you gotta work your way back. That's tough sledding. And but man, and then you come in and you kind of disappear your freshman year coming off that injury. But this year, this past with that Ohio State game, good Lord, he came up big in that game. He is going to be another one of those rotation guys. I mean, when you look at that, we got the front seven obviously going on there, and there's a lot of rotation in that Michigan on the first level and the second level. He's going to be part of that rotation, and you're going to hear his name called a lot this year. And I mean, he looks like a mean dude, and he is a great guy off the field, but he's a holy terror on the field. That just adds to that depth that Michigan has
No
outside.
question about it. Yep, no question about it. And I'll tell you what, I'm seeing the countdown: 55, 54, 53 days until Michigan.
53 right now. Yeah.
53, we're on it, and everybody is people are ready to go. And we also certainly have some breaking news in the Big Ten, and we're going to talk about that in one moment. But before that happens, we do want to take a moment to shout out the sponsor of our Tuesday night recruiting show and a longtime partner of the Wolverine in Lewis Jewelers. Simple question, guys. We've asked a few on this podcast, but this is an important one. Is your daughter's engagement ring bigger than that of your wife? If the answer is yes, great news. Lewis Jewelers can help. It's stress-free. It's easy working with one of their non-commissioned expert trusted advisors, finding that perfect diamond. So stop today, guys, and fix this family issue. Lewis Jewelers, your diamond store, and so much more since 1921. Visit them at their new location, 300 South Maple Road, Ann Arbor, or online at lewisjewelers.com. That's LewisJewelers.com. That's Lewis Jewelers, where Ann Arbor gets engaged. And over in Northwestern, they have been heavily engaged in the kind of headlines you do not want to make. Pat Fitzgerald, one of the fixtures among Big Ten coaches, in that if you picked a guy that, okay, he's not going to get fired at any point, it would be Pat Fitzgerald. Why? Very prominent player for them back in the 1990s. A guy that is Wildcats football. A guy that really took Northwestern to the point of being able to compete in the Big Ten and be right up there, get a share of that championship. You know, it's almost unthinkable that he would be the guy that gets fired from Northwestern. But as we see these hazing charges and accusations come out, first it was that Pat Fitzgerald was only going to be suspended for 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden we get the big turnaround and he's gone. Talk about that situation as you've seen it develop and your thoughts about it.
Three of us, we got a little text thing going, you, me, and Ballas. And then, we went back and forth, and then Ballas comes up with a Harbaughism, there are no sacred cows, right? I mean, doesn't that say it all? Because you said it, everything about Pat Fitzgerald was correct. I mean, when I think of Northwestern, I don't think of Alex Agassi. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or Randy Walker. You think of Pat Fitzgerald, you think of that 95 team, and you think of the 17 years of what he's done. Now, granted, it's like we kind of accepted Northwestern. Yeah, I mean, he's won 5 bowl games, heck of a lot more than Harbaugh has recently. And he's been to two Big Ten. He's won 2 Big Big Ten berths, I think. But the thing about Pat Fitzgerald is this, and this just goes to show about anything. If with this particular situation, with this alleged hazing situation, when you got 11 players coming out now, it's and the details are disturbing, to be quite honest with you. If Pat Fitzgerald didn't know about it, he failed at his job, and if he did know about it, he shouldn't be in the job of responsibility, right? And I mean, he could be up for a civil suit. And then I say that, yet in contrast, now he's hired a high-powered lawyer and he's suing Northwestern, so it's going to get ugly real quick. It's unfortunate in so many ways. I mean, because when I think of Pat Fish, I go to media. You go to media days, and I talk to all the coaches. I just don't focus on Michigan and their scrum. Scrum media groups and things like that we go through. I move around, and you do too. I know you do. But Fitz is one who, when he talks to you, he really engages with you, and he's just such a likable guy. I feel horrible for it. I feel bad for the kids that are there. I mean, my God, there's going to be 25, 30 transfer portal kids fleeing out of there. I don't know what's going to happen. We're sitting here, July the 11th, or whatever it is, and camp opens August 1st. I mean, the portal's still open. That's almost probably a negative thing. So they can flee. And who are you going to get to coach this team? Because, and God forbid it's Sharon Moore, because I want him to stay at Michigan, but also it's not the timing to be successful.
No.
It's just a bad timing, bad situation. Here they have this multi-million dollar boutique stadium renovation where they're going to shrink it to 35,000, make it this incredible fan experience in Evanston, to keep the number of opposing fans out of there, and make it a more workable size stadium for this small university with a small student body. And you got all this donor money about ready to pour in, and all these board meetings come up for approval, and then this happens.
Yeah.
This is a bad time for Northwestern University. There's no question about it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Dave Mays obviously looking in with you, praying Northwestern doesn't hire Sharon Moore. I mean, on the one hand, Sharon is in a position where he is going to be the sole offensive coordinator for Michigan, in a very good position. Loves these guys, has done a great job. He will be a head coach someday. On the other hand, I mean, if you had a chance to become an instant multimillionaire and have a Big Ten program, that's no small thing.
Yeah.
So we will, I mean, certainly watch that as it develops. But I'll tell you what, if you're any sort of a Michigan fan, you would love to see this guy stay in place, and maybe a word to him from one of the higher ups that, hey, you could have a real future here if you stick with this thing.
Well, I look at it this way, John. I mean, and I'm not trying to, here I say that, but this is exactly what I'm doing. I'm not trying to put too much focus on this season. This is the year, but it is the year. It is the year. I mean, you look at the roster, you look at the level of what Harbaugh has gathered with it. You look at his coaching staff right now and what they bring to the table and what's in sync. And you hear about a recent article about, how Jim Harbaugh has taken his classroom and his practice and merged them together, which my son witnessed when he's a coach at Central, went down to practice. They said they're stopping right in the middle of the practice and they're watching film and up on the big screen, and they're combining it. It's a crazy element. That is that's state of the art stuff that Harbaugh's come up with. This is the place for Sharon to be for one more year. Okay. And then all the fruits of all the labor and all that, Jim's going to promote it. He said those guys are going to be head coaches. He wants them to be head coaches, and they will. And Michigan will get more people because they'll have that thing cooking, and they'll just reload with coaches and reload with great players.
No doubt. Circling back to the issue at hand with Northwestern, I will back you 100% in saying that the details, which are certainly out there if people want to pursue them, about these allegations, are absolutely sickening and disgusting. And I'm with you. Bottom line, the head coach is responsible for what goes on in his program. And I just think it would have been hard for him to know absolutely nothing about this. And if he didn't, well, then there was a lack of communication that it would be disturbing.
Yeah.
I will say this. I hearken back to what the great Bruce Motti said to me early in my tenure as editor of the Wolverine. Bruce said, the longtime sports information director at Michigan, he said, when other programs encounter issues, whether it be internal play, something with the law, something like that, he said, I'm very hesitant to gleefully dump on that program or to say a lot, because
Amen.
really in the world's biggest glass house.
Yeah.
And these are they're young guys. Coaches certainly aren't among, they should be wiser, older, etc. But you're going to have issues that come up. There's no question about it. in every single program that you go to. And so this is not a situation where we look at it and are dancing on Pat Fitzgerald's grave
And,
as
who doesn't like? I mean, everybody like. I mean, everybody in the Big Ten likes Northwestern. I don't know what it is about them. They get, even when they were good, and even when they beat teams and got to Indy and upset teams like 54-51. We know that one. Even when all that in 2000, even when all that happened, you just couldn't get a snarl about Northwestern. I don't know. They don't have that in them to get you to hate them. And so
well, because
if you're counting about Mate, no one's really going to hate on North. Now, if Ohio State did this, or if Michigan State did this, or this happened at one of those two schools, and yeah, I mean, absolutely, you and Mate are right on. Yeah, you got to watch out, because that what goes around comes around, and it has come around to Michigan. Let's be real, and so it's bad for the Big Ten, because it's bad PR, and it's a bad reflection on an otherwise good coach. I mean, great guy.
no doubt. All right, we're coming down the stretch late in the fourth quarter. It's about time for another long Donovan Edwards touchdown run, but it also time for Tom's take, in which he brings something that maybe I have overlooked, or just something that strikes his fancy that he really wants to talk about. Tom, what have you got?
Well, you talk about being patient. Okay, the word of the day is patience. My patience is being stretched. When is Juwan Howard going to complete this roster on this basketball team? You know what I mean? I mean, he's got this Perez kid out of West Virginia, who's a transfer that potentially could come to Michigan, he's still got a couple more scholarships. I mean, do you know something that I don't know? Is this going to happen, or when's the deadline on this? I mean, you got up right until school starts before you finish out your roster for basketball?
Yeah, I'm not sure the exact rule on that, but I'll tell you what. If you're asking me for predictions, I am disinclined to make them as relates to Michigan's roster, for all the reasons that you know and know very, very well. I mean, you're starting. I'm starting to wonder if Michigan basketball is starting to become a little bit like the old George Steinbrenner New York Yankees in terms of free agency. Uh,
Yeah,
Although I haven't seen necessarily the Reggie Jacksons yet that have appeared. Although they've certainly, Juwan Howard has brought in some good players. Uh,
yeah,
I agree. I mean, you not only are you left wondering about who fills this thing out and who are the final pieces, but then you've got that entire thing about this is not Wisconsin, where they've had a group of guys together for seemingly 6 or 7 years that have played together. You're throwing these guys together in and saying, okay, get to know each other very quickly, get on
exactly.
the same page very quickly, and we're going to turn out a really good basketball team.
Yeah, yeah, and this Jose Perez, who I guess has California, Gonzaga, Oregon, some other schools, and so you take it for what it's worth. This all when Bob Huggins resigned, he left West Virginia, but he had transferred. He's got a long transfer list. It's Jose Perez, but he seems like a good player. But and Olivier Kamwa is coming to that the Tennessee kid who I didn't think was coming. Now he is coming. So I mean, I think they're going to be decent, but that they're still missing pieces. And we haven't talked since the NBA draft, and I'm still recovering from the idea that Michigan not only had Hunter Dickinson, who was a good player and goes on to play in Kansas and playing for a prominent role, but they had two top 15 draft picks,
Yeah.
and they didn't make the NCAA tournament. And I must have heard that comment over and over and over. Like, how does this happen? You had Hunter Dickinson, and you have these two NBA picks, and they're top 15. It's a big year for Juwan Howard.
Right, but that speaks to the fact that you can have talent, and certainly the NBA drafts on potential, and you have talent. You had talent, but did you have at all times a cohesive team where that talent came together to assert itself? And I would give you a strong no there. And so we're gonna see how the talent that is left over, how the talent that's being brought in coalesces as a team. And that's going to really tell the story of the 2023-24 Michigan Wolverines on the basketball court. Tom Crawford, great job as always. Always good to sit for these sessions and talk about Michigan football, Michigan basketball. We will be doing this very soon, talking about Indianapolis and what all the football players, coaches, etc. have to say. In the meantime, I appreciate you, and just say we will see you next Tuesday in this same venue.
Always a pleasure, JB. Looking forward to it. We're back on a roll.